An important example of a price floor is the minimum wage. Minimum wage is a law that dictates the lowest price for labor that any employer may pay. Let's examine the effects of minimum wage. We have to consider the market for labor. A labor market, like all markets, is controlled by supply and demand. Workers determine the supply of labor and firms determine the demand. If there's no government intervention, then the wage normally adjusts to balance labor supply and labor demand. If the minimum wage is above the equilibrium level, then the quantity of labor supplied exceeds the quantity demanded. This results in unemployment. Thus, the minimum wage raises the incomes of those workers who have jobs, but then it lowers the incomes of workers who cannot find jobs. You must keep in mind that the economy has different labor markets, which means that there are different types of workers. Workers with high skills and much experience, they're usually not affected because their equilibrium wages are well above the minimum, so it doesn't affect them. For those kind of workers, the minimum wage is not binding. Minimum wage tends to have the biggest impact on the market for teenage labor. That's because their equilibrium wages are lower, because they have the least skilled jobs and are the least experienced members in the labor force. Minimum wage also greatly affects the quantity supplied. When the minimum wage rises, some teenagers who are still attending school choose to drop out and take these jobs. These new dropouts displace other teenagers who had already dropped out of school and who now become unemployed. High minimum wage tends to cause unemployment. You have to remember that not all minimum wage workers are heads of households trying to help their families escape poverty. In fact, fewer than a third of minimum wage earners are in families with incomes below the poverty line. Many teenagers from middle-class homes, however, are working part-time jobs for just a little extra spending money. From this we can conclude that price controls don't really help the people that they are intended to help.